Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jay Krishnaswamy from Oregon Health and Science University. Ted Gerstle from Memorial Sloan Kettering and I are excited to moderate this education session that's going to highlight some of the global pediatric surgery efforts that APSA is involved in, our committee is involved in, as well as our members and our partners. There's a lot to pack into this 45 minutes that is already eaten away, so we're going to launch right into the activity. As this is the 50th anniversary, Dr. Eric Hansen is going to be delivering a tribute to one of our founding fathers, Jim O'Neill, who, of course, has influenced pediatric surgery not only in North America, but also globally. So, Eric.
Greetings and thanks for the opportunity here. I think this is how most of us know Dr. O'Neill. If you didn't see him earlier yesterday, he can't be here right now. His grandson's graduating at Yale today or something, and so he's away, but he'll be back shortly. I think this is how most people know Jim, and so I'd like to just let y'all know, I think there's another side that I've gotten to know and really, and he's a cheerleader. Jim is a consummate cheerleader and advocate, and so, you know, this is really about the global work and the global surgical aspect that Jim's been involved in. And these are papers that are not his other CV, you know, the chief at CHOP, chairman at Vandy, but that he's been involved in since actually his retirement. And so looking at global work and global surgical work, here's Jim at a bunch of places. You see him with kids getting ready to go to church, playing with a balloon there with the kid, monkeying around, literally, and visiting kids and working at a district hospital in a town in Naivasha in Kenya. And here he is working with a group of nuns who have done some amazing work at Upendo Village in Kenya, and he's been involved in that and reaching out, involving his family. You see his grandson there in the bottom, I guess if you're looking at its screen left bottom, so about 5 o'clock. That's his grandson and his now soon-to-be wife, if not already wife. They're both residents at Southwestern, and he brought them to Kajabi. And so Jim's been an advocate and a friend for me over the last since I've been at Kajabi over the last 8+ years. And I can't tell you how much he cares about people, how much he cares about kids, how much he cares about helping people at every level in every way. And really that's, as a cheerleader, I've had few other cheerleaders that have been quite as important in my professional life, and then it leaked over into personal life. And so here he is having some time with the Masai Mara. Here he is trying to become a Masai. I'll tell you that his vertical is not very good. But here he is in the operating room in Kajabi in room 5. He looks like he's licking his finger. He might have been eating a snack. He's been coming and kibitzing in his word. He sits there and just gives some advice. Oh, why are you doing that? Do that faster. Do that slower. Do that better. And it's been really great to have him teach, involved with our residents, involved with helping me and my partner Ken advocating. And here he is operating and pointing out and teaching. Here's his family, not quite all of it, but his family, which is really important to him. And he's become part of my family. These are important people to me. And I just want to really hail Jim O'Neill. You all know the other stuff he's done. He's a friend, he's an advocate, he's a cheerleader, and he and his wife Susan there in the orange are people who care deeply about people, and that's the best I can say about him. So, thanks.
I hope most everyone has their audience clickers. I know there's a lot of confusion switching sessions. If you don't, you can probably get it in the back. We wanted to start off kind of by understanding everybody who's in the audience. So we're going to ask a couple questions towards that effect. If you can grab your clickers. Our first question is, are you a faculty? And if so, are you in academic practice, private practice? Are you a resident? Are you a fellow or a student? Oh, we get music. This is exciting. Okay, so most of us here are academic practice faculty. Have you engaged in global surgery work? Yes, currently involved, not currently, but in the past, or you've never been involved? How do we decide on the music for this? That's what I want to know. It's really good. Okay, so most of us are involved, but there's at least 20% of people who haven't been involved, so that's hopefully we'll touch on that. In what way are you involved in global surgery? Primarily clinically, primarily academic, specifically education, research, advocacy. Do you spend kind of equal time for clinical and academic work, or are you not involved in global surgery? All right, so pretty good split here. Interesting. All right, where do you primarily work in global surgery? I think these questions are, you can read them and see. Don't just put Antarctica because you want to be funny. Somebody already has. Well, I don't think we're going to touch on the 8% of people who work in Antarctica, but maybe we'll touch on some of the things relevant to the others. So thanks for those responses. I think they help us really understand the audience and what our membership is doing out there. Our first speaker is Dr. Tamara Fitzgerald, who's an assistant professor at Duke University, and she's vice chair of the APSA Global Pediatric Surgery Committee. Fun fact about Tamara, which I learned from the website, Duke's website, is that she loves green tea, hot in the winter and iced in the summer. She's going to be talking to us about the results of the first 10 years of the APSA Travel Fellow Program.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, so we're going to have another question. Which of the following do you think is true regarding the previous APSA Travel Fellows? The majority of fellows reported improvements in operative skills as a result of the fellowship. Most fellows are coming from areas of the world that do not have a pediatric surgical society of their own. The majority of fellows received structured training and leadership skills during their fellowship. The majority of fellows reported that they were able to make improvements in a hospital system as a result of the fellowship, or time away from work was reported as a significant barrier for application to the program. Okay, so the correct answer is D. The majority of the fellows reported that they were able to make improvements in a hospital system as a result of the fellowship. Okay, so a brief history. The first fellow came in 2013. After that, we expanded the fellowship to have 2 fellows a year. And then in 2018, we extended the program so that instead of the fellows just coming for the meeting, they also came and did an extended training program. This is just a map showing the countries of origins for the previous APSA fellows. We've had fellows from Ecuador, Kenya, Malawi, Nepal, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Philippines, Uganda, and Vietnam. We've had 7 men and 4 women with a mean age of 41 years. And you can see that most of the surgeons were working in some type of government practice within their country. We asked the fellows why they wanted to apply to the program. And you can see that most people are interested in networking, experiencing a different medical culture, learning new procedural techniques, and different ways of providing care. There weren't that many barriers to participation in the program. People felt that it was pretty accessible. Even though we started a formal extended observership in 2018, I think before that a lot of the sponsors were using the fellowship as a way to get people here that they supported, and there were a number of institutions that supported the fellows to come and do observerships or courses, and you can see those institutions here. A lot of the fellows participated in structured courses when they came. So the most popular courses were the colorectal course and the oncology course. But there were some fellows that just came and attended the meeting and didn't really do any structured courses. They also participated in focused mentorships. Again, oncology and colorectal were very popular, as was laparoscopic surgery or neonatal care. And almost everybody spent some time observing just general pediatric surgery. We asked them if in retrospect there was a topic of focused learning that they wish they would have had while they were here. And a lot of people reported that they would like more training in laparoscopic surgery, as well as colorectal cases. We then asked, once you went back, did you make improvements in the following areas as a result of the APSA fellowship? And you can see that everybody felt that they were more connected to APSA members, while other people were able to make personal improvements in their practice or improve a hospital system, expand their quality improvement programs, etc. We also had a free answer section talking about changes they made. I just wanted to read some of those quotes. My practice is now more family-centered. We endeavor to carry patients along every aspect of care. There's better communication and collaboration with other healthcare professionals. We improved our infection control practices. We have organized the oncology section such that multidisciplinary management is highlighted and regular monthly conferences are now being held. In whatever we're planning to do, we now focus more on the long-term goals and also plan for the unit beyond myself so that may continue even after I leave. I've been able to influence our approach to neonatal surgical care and now have standard protocols that we follow to reduce mortality. And one fellow said that he's been appointed as a quality director in pediatrics, monitoring quality measures since July. Surgeons in the U.S. agreed to mentor it online. We have developed research collaborations with U.S. pediatric surgeons on various grants, and we wrote 2 articles which were published. What would you change about the fellowship? I would ask for fellows for training in which they're lacking in their own country so that they'll be able to return back with their new knowledge and apply in their professional career. The program works perfectly. I would prefer a hands-on participation during the rotation. Travel fellows should identify specific areas of need to focus on during the fellowship and work with the mentor to develop those skills. It would be better if the travel fellows had a definite focus for learning instead of just observing. Next, we asked them about the pediatric surgical societies they're in. This is just an example of some of the societies that fellows were a part of. And we asked them if you would like to see APSA partner with your local pediatric surgery society. And there was a resounding yes that they would like to partner. And the biggest way they saw partnering was to provide guest speakers and to provide courses. Again, how can APSA partner with your society? Again, you can see they're really interested in short courses, mini fellowship, organized workshops, focused mentoring and training. Most of the fellows also received a subscription to the NAT, which they found very, very useful, and hope that it continues. Additional comments, I hope that APSA will remember us for any research-oriented work in developing countries and any updating training that APSA is providing to its members in the near future so we can contribute to APSA as well. I cherish the fellowship program and would recommend it to my younger colleagues. My experience is wonderful. Americans are amazing people and the best hosts. So in conclusion, the travel fellows are very interested in structured courses as part of the fellowship, and I think this is what we'll be implementing more in the future. Networking and changing system practices were cited as the greatest benefits of the program. And fellows are interested in having APSA partner with their societies to help them with lectures, courses, and workshops. And lastly, I would just like to announce the fellows for this year. The first fellow was Tunde Sholadoye. He's from Nigeria, and unfortunately he was unable to attend a visa this year, and he will be attending the conference next year. And then we also have Santosh Mahalik, who is from India, and he is here at the conference. Thank you.
Okay, so our next speaker coming up again is Eric Hansen. After Eric completed his pediatric surgery fellowship at the Children's Hospital of Alabama, he spent pretty much the better half of, or most of the last decade as the inaugural program director for the Pediatric Surgery Fellowship in Kijabe, Kenya. And he's going to be talking to us about that experience.
So I appreciate this invitation again. I think it's, I'm flattered and grateful for the chance here. I'm going to give you a brief overview here. I don't have any conflicts of interest or off-label drug discussions, and as one of my mentors says, there are no p-values or any other statistical discussions here anyway. So for this talk, really quickly, kind of program genesis, I want to tell you about how the program started and developed in partnership, and I really would want to kind of highlight how APSA in various ways has contributed to the training and the work there. And so here's a quick question. Y'all want to see if you can answer this. We'll see what answers I get. I would have expected Hanson, Mbop, but as was played in the earlier session. All right, teaching, great. Bethany Kids at Kajabi Hospital is a pediatric center there. Just to give you an idea where it is, it's in Kenya. So many of y'all know where Kenya is in East Africa. Kajabi is about an hour outside of Nairobi, so the A is actually in Kajabi, not in Nairobi. And it's on an escarpment overlooking the Great Rift Valley. So what you can't tell is the elevation change. So it's at 7,000 feet elevation, just south of the equator. And that's Kajabi Hospital, the entire complex. Over in the far 9 o'clock position, you'll see the building of Bethany Kids, and then you saw the picture of what it looks like now. The program actually started in 2007. Some people have graciously given me credit for starting the program, and I did not start the program. Dan Panaro, there in the bottom right corner, and started the program in concert with Dick Bransford. Dick Bransford started Bethany Kids. One of his daughters named Bethany, and it's really to care for kids with surgical disabilities. And so in 2007, Dan had been in Kajabi now for a number of years. By the way, Dick was in Kajabi for 34 years, was in Africa for 38 years. He's a general surgeon. And both have won the ACS Surgical Humanitarian Award, if you didn't know that. But Dan started the program in 2007, and really it was based on a North American model that said all of our trainees will be board certified or board eligible, or the equivalent thereof from our terminology when they start. And so this is COSEXA. So many of you know the College of Surgeons of East Central and Southern Africa and their model, which is based on kind of European and really modeled after their RCSI, Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland, which involves two years of basic surgical training, and then 3, or in neurosurgery's case, 4 years of training. Our model in Kajabi started on the far left, where you were fully trained in general surgery and then moved into pediatric surgery. And that's how it started and persisted. Dick Bransford had a heart for disabled kids, and that included kids with spina bifida and hydrocephalus. And if you look at the gray there, this may be the highest center in the world for spina bifida and hydrocephalus. They were doing 300 to 400 myelo closures a year and 500 to 700 shunts a year. But it was one service. So they were doing pediatric general surgery a little bit, urology, some plastics and rehab, and then a lot of neurosurgery up through 2010. In 2010, the man in the middle there is Leland Albright. He's one of the giants in pediatric neurosurgery. Moved to Kajabi, and the service split into 2 services, pediatric general surgery and pediatric neurosurgery. You see Dick Bransford, Ruth Mayforth is a pediatric surgeon, and then Mike Matlack, also a pediatric surgeon, and you see Dan Panaro there and myself. And so the service was split there in 2010, at the end of 2010, and so moving on, it was 2 services. So pediatric general surgery was non-orthopedic and non-neurosurgical pediatric surgery. So all pediatric urology, all like cleft lips and palates were still under that scope. The program was initially accredited for 2 years under COSEXA per their own policy, because there was only one formally trained pediatric surgeon, and you need to have at least 2 to get full 3-year accreditation. So it had 2 years. In 2015, we got full accreditation for a full 3 years. This was the site visit with people from Ethiopia, from Kenya, and others as part of the visit. So this is just kind of an overview of our case volume from 2011 to 2018. The orange is pediatric general surgery, and then pediatric urology all together under the service. The pediatric, like cleft lips and palates and stuff like that, were included. The PDA ligations and thoracic stuff were all included in pediatric general surgery. And so this is just to give you an idea of what the ACGME says is a minimum, what our fellows did after 3 years, and then what the hospital did per year. And then more broken down here, you see that. I want to get to we did a lot of pediatric urology as a point. We changed our model just in this last year to be able to have pediatric surgery move to what COSEXA does, is have pediatric surgery just after MCS training. And so we're moving to that. We've just matriculated our first third year, but first year in pediatric surgery fellowship training in January of this year. So really the program's about oversight, multiple levels of simultaneous training, multiple people from different countries, surgery and anesthesia together, and trying to advance some technology, doing Hirschsprung laparoscopic assisted Hirschsprung pull-throughs. Anesthesia's doing stuff as well from higher technology stuff and really pushing the limit. But also, Don Meyer sitting here said this. I learned it from Tarpley, his friend. Don't count your failures, count your successes. And I think we got to really count and celebrate our successes. So I want to now run through areas where people affiliated with APSA, which is many people in this room and outside, have contributed and helped. So Ken Muma, my partner, was an APSA Travel Fellow in 2014. He was sponsored by me, hosted really by Jim O'Neill at Vanderbilt, and then Mark Levitt at Nationwide Children's, and then Fred Rescorla in Indianapolis. And he's now the executive director of the hospital. And is doing a great job, as well as a program director now for the pediatric surgery training program. So you're invested in people that are making a difference. Fred Rescorla and Chris Moyer here in these two pictures. We've had these retreats every 2 years to try to bring our fellows back and give us some camaraderie, but also education and time together. Many of y'all have read articles. Sheriff's sitting here. McGill and Kajabi have had an exchange program, and you see fellows and people who've come out to Kajabi during that time, and that's been terrific. Research in collaboration with many people, but here I'm highlighting Vanderbilt. That's Bo Levin in the middle. Jason Axe partnering with him, and Jim O'Neill looking at Wilms tumor in various ways, and Kajabi was one of the sites. There were many sites, but Kajabi was one of them. I highlight these two folks because they're both moving to Kajabi to help. I've just left Kajabi as of last month, and so they're both moving to Kajabi to help Ken and further the program. And so Jason's finished his training, Brittany finishes in July, and they'll both move there within the next year and a half. So other people have come over. You see them here. Bringing toys, bringing stuff, bringing instruments. Phil Frickman and his organization have donated these stimulators to our fellows every year. Thompson Surgical Instruments has donated a full set to all our graduating fellows of Thompson Retractor. Lots of y'all have come out and helped. It's been amazing. It's taught me a lot. It's allowed me to expand my ability to practice in subspecialty in different ways. And so I show this map a lot, and I'm proud of this map of the people that we've trained in various ways and have passed through our program, from Sierra Leone, Cameroon, Uganda, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Madagascar, Zambia, Rwanda, DRC. But what I also like to show you here is that these people represent about 178 million children. They're not the only pediatric surgeons, and some of them are, they're only ones in their country, but they represent care for about 178 million children. The Rio Grande Valley is where I grew up in South Texas, by the way. So here's that map again. I'm proud of that map. It says a lot about the work that lots of people have done and the shoulders we've stood on, but I also want to show this map. And this is a lot of people, a lot of you in this room who've contributed and helped, that have really furthered the program, and I hope that I didn't forget anybody. I'd love to get those white areas filled in as well, so anybody who happens to be in that part, you want to contact me, I'll put you in contact. I'd love to make it green. So anyway, I'm grateful. Thank y'all.
So our last speaker for this session has come all the way from Scotland to be with us. David Cunningham is the Chief Executive Officer at Kids Operating Room, which is an organization supporting local surgeons in low and middle income countries through creation of dedicated pediatric ORs and sustainable surgical services for children. So David, you can come on out.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a really great honor to be here with you. If you work in global surgery or you get involved in it, you're going to spend a lot of time looking out of plane windows. You sometimes see cool things like this in Ethiopia. We'll come back to Ethiopia in just a minute. I'll also start with a question. I won't read it all out, but equipping operating rooms for children, What does it do? What's its real benefit? And if we could start the timer, please. Great. So you're absolutely right. I mean, it can have a substantial economic benefit for a nation. It can reduce waiting lists for surgery and also improve the experience for trainees. The world we live in is not the normal world for most of the population. This picture I took in Haiti, this is the morning commute for these people traveling to work. The girl in the white dress, she's going to work in an office. We counted 13 people on the back of that vehicle. That is how the majority of the world's population live. And that is most keenly felt in healthcare. So this is in Lilongwe in Malawi, and this is a pretty good surgical ward. The surgeon there is first class. And if you see that bed second in, there's 4 kids on that bed, and that's normal. The one on the end is getting their nappy changed. That's healthcare for the most of the world's population. And I want to try and put that into some sort of scale. Some of you will know what this is. But there's 1,700 dots on this screen. You can take my word for it, or you can quickly count. Rows of 10, 10 down, 17 blocks of 100. So either you're going to figure out what this is already, or if you're not sure, don't worry. This is not the number of kids who will show up needing an operation during the time of my presentation. Actually, it's much worse. Every single dot is 1 million children who do not have access to surgery when they need it. And if we take that into slightly more manageable numbers, this is 100 million kids who, when they fall, when they get injured, don't get surgery when they need it. But even that number is really just a statistic. It's more than all the kids in America. So if we take just one dot, 1 million kids, and we try to think, if I took that million kids and made every single one of those dots appear on the screen just goes blue, all the white space disappears. So we try and think what happens if we look at... The scale of this global tragedy has blown the IT system. That is literally how big this issue is. Are we good? Not good. Shall I carry on? It's going to be really hard to do the video part of this presentation. My acting skills are going to be pushed here. Okay, what was going to happen now was you were going to see some kids appearing, 1 a second. And if you could see every one of those kids who don't have access to safe surgery at that rate of 1 a second, it would take you 55 years to see them all. So by that time, they've grown up and they've got kids and grandkids of their own. So there's another 1.7 billion and another 1.7 billion children who still don't have access to safe surgery. So this seems overwhelming. How can we tackle a global shortage on this scale? And what I'm here to say today is 2 things. One, there is hope, and I hopefully will be able to show you that there is hope and there are solutions. And 2, to ask for your help. Now, if this comes up. This is pretty good, actually, because my speech was 10 minutes long, and now nobody will realize that I've gone over my 8-minute allotment. Okay, so those were the kids, but there is hope. I want to talk about this one child. So rather than losing the statistics, let's bring it down to a single case. This girl was brought into one of our hospitals in Tanzania. She had a congenital fistula, so she was completely incontinent. Her mother had hidden this from the village where she lived by keeping her in nappies. The trouble is, she was 4 years old, and I have never in my life met a child so passionate to go to school. This girl had a dream, a desire, and this energy. She wanted to go to school. Trouble is, she was incontinent, school wouldn't accept her. So so we don't have volume. It doesn't really matter. This was a story run by the BBC News on their World Service about that hospital. And actually, in that video clip, you would have got to see the little girl having her operation. And what happened in that hospital is that we knew there were 3 surgeons, but by giving them the tools to do the job, and that was 2 brand new operating rooms, we completely unblocked the system. So a 3-year waiting list for elective surgery in Dar es Salaam became 2 weeks. And in fact, that little girl was treated within 3 days of arriving at the hospital. So here she is after her operation. She's smiling and she's happy because she's just been told, you can go to school. And if you pause for a second and think about the life she was facing, without an operation, no vaccine, no therapy, no medicine was going to cure that little girl or let her realize her dreams. She was facing a life of total abandonment, destitution. 45 minutes after entering our operating room, she is facing a life of hope and of opportunity, and it is that significant. And for those 100 million, for those 1.7 billion kids, it is possible to do the same. And so what we do at Kids OR is we find those local people and we give them all of the support that they need. And so this is the main operating room for children's surgery back in the hospital I showed you in Lilongwe in Malawi. That is where kids went for their operations. It was actually a corridor. It was a bit of a corridor that was blocked off. People still tried to use it, even when it was being used now as the children's operating room. After we worked with Bip Nandi, the local surgeon, this is where kids get surgery now in Lilongwe. It's now a great place to work. It's now a great place to teach more surgeons. And actually, it's a clean, healthy, safe place to have an operation. And the same back in Ethiopia, where I started with that shot from the window. Well, this just opened a month ago. This is the hospital in the Menlik 2 hospital in Addis. But I don't know if you saw, any of you may have seen an announcement from the Ethiopian government this weekend. They're going to be rolling power cuts now. They're going to have planned power outages right throughout Addis through July. And so we've just opened this unit. And already they're facing now challenges to actually sustain it. So even when we get there, there will still be problems that we need to face. But we can build operating rooms all day. The challenge is we actually need great people to work in them. People like Eric and his team have been training for years. This is a quick snapshot of Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Rwanda, and then the US. Now, I'm not suggesting we forcibly move people. I'm just throwing it out there that if we took those 640 extra you've got here, suggested they move there, we'd tackle the problem. But I accept that's probably not ethically possible. And so on Thursday in Geneva, with the First Lady of Kenya and with 22 Ministers of Health, we will be announcing this plan, which is our Africa 2030 program. I would ask if you're on Twitter, and it's great if you are, and you want to say how brilliant this speech was. It would also be helpful if you didn't mention this just until Thursday, because this is embargoed until then. But what we're going to do is we're going to fund the training of 120 pediatric surgeons in full. And we're going to fund the training of 120 anesthesia providers in full. And we're going to build every single one of them a high-quality, world-class operating room. And so we're going to create across sub-Saharan Africa 120 centers of excellence for children's surgery. Thank you. It is ambitious, but we think it's the right thing to do. We'll be looking to invest in places like Kajabi, in places where they're training these people to get the highest standards. In fact, some of the colleagues from Kajabi have been advising us, particularly around the anesthesia provision, as we take this forward. But finally, we need your help to make that happen. And that's why I'm here today, before this goes public on Thursday. Because we need to identify those hospitals, and not just in Africa. We still work in South America and in Southeast Asia too. We need people who will support those trainees and support the people training them. We need help with the research. We need to partner with new surgeons. So once we get somebody through a COSEXA fellowship, we still want them to have a partner from a high-value country who can actually give them that guidance and support that they need. Something that when I look out in this room, I see faces who I know are doing that already with great effect. To mentor, guide, support, visit, further invest as that person develops skills that you're able to support them develop. If nothing else, be eyes and ears on the ground. Support us. I think we're asking you mostly to join us. Join that movement to create these centres of excellence so that children can have hope, because they can, and we know it works. And with your help, it could be something really quite special. Thank you very much.
Okay, so a couple of things, just a couple quick announcements. At 6 or close by, on the second floor, we'll be having a Global Pediatric Surgery Committee networking event. It's kind of in the corner of the bar at Champions. There'll be a little sign there, so anybody who's interested in talking further about this afterwards or interested in the field and wants to get involved, please come to that. Also, there are some sign-in sheets kind of hopefully going around to you guys now that will help us figure out some demographic information, and also whether any of you out there might be interested in helping to host a travel fellow for APSA or be involved in the travel fellow program. Right now it's pretty much taken care of by the committee itself, but we'd like all of APSA to be involved. So I think we're going to start our questions. We have about 10 minutes for questions.
So I know we got started a little late, and if you need to go, I fully understand, but we did want to open the floor to some questions for our speakers, and I guess I'd start with a question for David. So thank you very much for coming here, and thank you for that great presentation. The one question I had for you, what's the strategies that Kids OR uses for maintaining these great things that you get started, and because it's my impression that sometimes when I've been at various places, they value the biomedical person that comes with this that helps repair things more than they value the rest of the team, because they seem to be such short supply. So I'd be curious about your thoughts on that.
Is this working? Yeah. Yeah, great question. And we see that all the time. Africa is a graveyard for medical equipment. So first of all, we have our own biomedical engineers, and they will work with the local hospital to make sure that they understand the equipment they're getting. But then in our warehouse in Scotland, we have a mock operating room that's an exact replica of what we install. And so the biomedical engineer in the host country can actually do a live video call to our engineers in Scotland, and they can talk them through, right, I want you to do this. Look at what I'm doing on this exact same machine here. I want you to do that. And so we can actually reduce the number of times we have to visit, the number of times we have to send new kit out, just by having that known contact and then being able to actually guide them through on a video call on exactly the same piece of equipment what they should be doing.
So that's a great strategy. So each OR is made the same way each time you put it in.
Yeah, so they're all standard equipment in all of our ORs. Yeah.
Very cool. Very good. So another question I had, I don't see anyone ask, so I'll continue on. Eric, I had a question with all the experience that you had working at Kajabi at Bethany Children's Hospital. If you could name one challenge, what would be the challenge that you ran into the most that would be helpful for us to know about?
It's hard to name one. Let's see. Maybe I'll use David's. Can you hear me? Great. It's hard to name one. I'll mention that 50% of my practice was part of my formal scope of training. 50% of my practice was outside of my formal scope of training. And so what that meant was that I had to learn a lot. Every day's a school day, right? We're always learning. And so having people come who provide some nuance, some technical stuff, some help, that upskills me, that allows me to upskill my fellows, that allows them to upskill, I think that's incredibly important. And so those are short-term visits that can be immensely valuable. I would also add that there were periods of time where I was by myself as the consultant, and it's hard to get away. And so having people come and say, hey, I'll come and hold the fort is also really important. But probably having people that are willing to come and upskill me and not throw out the red carpet, not make a big hoopla, but just come and do that was really important.
Thank you. To the back of the room, ma'am?
Barbara Wilhelmer from Geneva. Thank you for all your presentations. So I will be in Geneva on Thursday. My question is actually, it's coming back to the challenges, and I think one of the big challenges is money, because this is not just going like this. You have a budget. Can you tell me what your yearly budget is in Kenya, for example? Because I'm in the same problem as everybody who wants to start those programs. And how did you get the finance?
That's not an easy answer. I would say, I'd tell you the hospital's budget is $10 million a year. I can't tell you exactly what my pediatric surgical budget was. I can tell you that it cost about $100,000 US to train one pediatric surgeon in 3 years, or between 80 and 100,000 US. And so that money came from donations, from support raising, from a vast different variety of things, plus a little bit of patient income, but very little for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Good. Sharif Emil, Montreal. Really, just an absolutely amazing session. I had a question for David, and then a comment and a question for Eric, maybe outside a little bit of the scope of what you're talking about. For David, I think you sensed in the room the enthusiasm for what you're doing. I think it's really amazing. For many of us who've worked in Africa, the pictures you're showing us are really incredible. But a center of excellence is not an operating room, and that's the problem a lot of us run into, is you can have a fantastic operating room, you can have fantastic equipment, but then you need the ancillary care, and you need the nursing, and you need the expertise outside the operating room. Are you guys involved in any of that? And where does your selection of where you're going to build these ORs, is it depending on what else exists outside the operating room that really would allow a pediatric surgeon to thrive? So that's my question. Maybe I'll let you answer that, and I'll ask Eric a quick question.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% correct. So we will create the operating room. We will support the funding, the training of the surgeon. We will, for every surgeon, we will support the funding, the training of a pediatric anesthesia provider. I would love to say that 120 of those will be physician anaesthetists, but I think we have to be realistic. And so we're aiming to do a minimum of 40 physician anaesthetists with 80 specialist nurse anaesthesia providers. If we can do 120 physicians, then we will, and we're budgeting towards doing that. Then when you get into nursing, no, at that point it goes beyond our realistic capacity to make a difference. For lots of reasons, including most hospitals refuse to have set nurses who are theatre nurses. They rotate, and so you could train a whole bunch, and next week they would be off doing something else. But we do have a pretty rigorous assessment process for every hospital. And we have a board that assesses that includes people in this room, Dan Ponero, who was talked about earlier, Kokila Laku, who's the Oxford professor, chair of the Global Initiative in Children's Surgery. We've got a pretty extensive board who do assess to make sure that when we do invest in a hospital, actually the hospital has a capacity to then deliver that.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to congratulate Eric again. I think what Dan started and you continued, you really have to see it on the ground to understand the impact it's had. I've worked with many of these graduates in their local environments after they graduated, and they are always considered the best pediatric surgeons in their communities. I mean, it is really, truly amazing what you have done. My question is, you've also hosted a lot of residents and fellows in our case. We send our fellows to you. Can you give us a bit of a perspective on maybe the reverse value or the kind of the reverse innovation that some of them have acquired, or the relationships that have been built? Because I think there is still a pretty strong bias in pediatric surgery against sending fellows to low resource settings. So I was just curious what your perspective is.
I think that it would be ideal to have a one-for-one, apples-for-apples kind of exchange thing. Y'all have done an amazing job at McGill of trying to facilitate that better than any other program, I think, has done in North America. And then it's been really hard. There's been a lot of effort. I think that, so then you end up going, well, it can't be apples for apples. Can it be apples for oranges? And eat your good fruit, right? One of the things that I would say that if you look at that map, and I wish I had too many slides, that's my fault. I would have liked to point out many of those people from McGill are in this room, and I believe all of them, maybe one isn't, but all of them are still in part of their practice, either full-time or significant, structured, intentional, contract-related, dedicated time spending in the developing world supporting that. And that's the kind of grassroots kind of groundswell that's really important. I think our fellows love working with the visiting expat fellows. I guess most of our fellows are expat from Kenya also. They're just from other African countries. That camaraderie and that connection, I think Tamara's point on one of the slides about what did the traveling fellows get out of their time was connection to their APSA members, and that was a really high value for them. And I don't want to minimize. I think that's really important for even the people that were locally trained to have those relationships.
Yes, sir. Next question.
This is for David. Similar to your comments about supporting the bioengineers to keep the equipment running, are there efforts to provide like telemedicine, teleproctoring equipment in the operating room so that you can continue to support the surgeons and the anesthesiologists with people and other programs? And
no, but we really want to, and we recognize the desire and a need to have within our plans space for innovation. And I think that's got to be key. We would like all of the surgeons we work with to network better within themselves. A lot of them, like Edmund, who came through Eric to Rwanda, is the only pediatric surgeon in Rwanda. So we would like them to have a means of feeling more connected, more part of a team. So you're absolutely right in terms of telemedicine, in terms of providing those opportunities. We're definitely open to that. We'd like to really push the boundaries. I would love to get to a stage where if something breaks, I can email a replacement, and it just gets 3D printed out in the operating room. You know, the idea of us having to ship things for 3-6 months is madness. So within our plans, we have created a space for innovation. Some of it, I think, already exists, like telemedicine. Other stuff, I think, is quite exciting. We shouldn't rule it out either.
good luck.
I'd like to finish this session with just one last question for Tamara. Based on what you've talked about with the fellowship, is there anything what could the APSA membership do potentially to contribute to the ongoing success of this program?
Is this on? I think what the fellows want most is mentorship. And I think if anybody's willing to be a sponsor, if you're willing to sponsor a fellow, or if you'd be willing to go to one of their academic societies and give a talk or provide some skill transfer, I think that's what people have indicated that they would want.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for staying with us a little over time. I think this was a great session. I certainly got a lot of it. Hopefully you did as well. Please don't hesitate to hopefully join us for the reception at 6 o'clock. Thank you.